We're talking about states here in the Muslim world that existed at the same time as the great states that we tend to read about in Europe, that are fully the technological equivalent of European states, and also in terms of innovation are fully the equivalent of European states. So technology is one common factor. Another common factor is ideology that linked all these things together. Now, not most of them, but not all of them. The two great ideological states were the Sharifian state of Morocco and the Safavids of Iran. Now, of course, you can get an idea of what's going on in Iran, since I said that the Safavid Empire was an empire founded on Shiism. All right, and so the motivating force politically behind this particular state was the spread of Shiism throughout the Muslim world. They weren't really concerned with converting non-Muslims. Their concern was making all Muslims into Shia. The Sharifian Empire was, I think, a little bit more interesting because, as I mentioned, it was based on a sort of divine right of rule by the family of the Prophet. That's kind of interesting because that's what the Shiites believe as well. The Safavid rulers were not descendants of the Prophet, but their job, according to their teaching, their ideology, was to prepare the way for the coming of the hidden Imam. The Shia believe that there's the 12th Imam, and the line starting from Ali, the cousin and son-in-law of the Prophet Muhammad, is an occultation or sort of suspended animation in hiding, and that he's going to come back at the end of time. And so the teachings of the Safavids is that this empire was to prepare the world for the coming of the hidden Imam. The Moroccans were not Shia, they were Sunni, but in a sense they had a sort of Shiite political ideology, in that they taught that there was a divine right of rulership by descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. They too were sort of imams, except in this case they used the old caliphal titles, the titles of the caliph, as a way of making their own claims. Specifically, they set themselves up as the caliphs of the Arabs against the Turks of the Ottoman Empire. Historically, what's interesting about the Sharifian Empire is that they created what is perhaps the earliest true nation on the face of the earth. When I'm talking about a true nation, I'm talking about a sense of nationalism that developed, that when we think of a nation, we basically think in terms of ideals and sort of philosophical concepts that grew up in the 18th and 19th century, especially in the 19th century. If you think of a nationalist state as a state with contiguous borders, Morocco had contiguous borders with the exception of the south and a little bit in the east by the end of the 16th century. When you think of common language, Morocco had a common language in the 16th century, a special form of Moroccan dialectical Arabic that tended to unite people. When you think of common religion as an indicator of nationalism, Morocco had Islam, but it was Islam defined according to the Maliki school of law, which was the school of law of Morocco, and theology defined according to the tenets of theology that was called Maturidi. So again, you could argue that this is a sort of common religious identity, and of course there's this common political ideology, the ideology of the divine right of rule by the descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. So you see, very interesting things were going on in the Muslim world at a very late period of time that tends to be overlooked.